Welcome to episode 447. What if the secret to radiant skin is not found in your skincare routine, but in your digestion? I'm chatting with Vaidya Kamya about Ayurveda's timeless understanding of the gut-skin connection. You'll learn how Agni, Ama, and Rasa Dhatu influence skin health, why stress and emotions can show up on your complexion, and simple Ayurvedic practices to nourish your skin from the inside out. Welcome to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. I'm your host, Colette. And if you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend starting with the first few episodes where I introduce the foundations of Ayurveda and the doshas. To learn more, work with me, or explore my offerings, you can visit elementshealingandwellbeing.com. And for podcast updates, join me on Instagram at Elements of Ayurveda Podcast. And before we begin, just a quick note to say that this podcast is for educational and inspirational purposes only. It's not intended as medical advice. Now let's dive into this episode. Hello and welcome back to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. Today I'm very happy to welcome back Vaidya Kamya Pillai, who is a specialist in Ayurveda with more than a decade of clinical experience. She earned her degree in Ayurvedic medicine from Mahatma Gandhi University in Kerala, and later served as a faculty in the same university before relocating to California. Currently, she works at Kerala Ayurveda Academy and Wellness Center in Milpitas, California as a Vaidya, core faculty and mentor. Coming from a family of teachers and healers, it has always been a calling as well as a privilege for her to choose this noble profession and serve the community. Vaidya Kamya believes in helping her clients through creative, practical tools using the principles of Ayurveda and yoga. Vaidya Kamya, welcome back to the podcast. Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Colette, for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here. Looking forward to this conversation.
Yes, our conversation on gut-skin connection. And we all want healthy, glowing skin. And there is a huge industry based around this desire. But in Ayurveda, we know that healthy, glowing skin is an inside job. It's not about what we put on our skin. It's what's happening internally. So I think let's start there, Vaidya Kamya. What does Ayurveda teach us about the connection between our gut health and our skin health?
Yes, Colette. I think I'll start with my professor's favorite quote. He used to say that the skin is our gut's autobiography. It makes so much sense, right?
Yeah,
everything that the gut has been through, like whether the food, good food or bad food, our stress, or the mental, our state of mind, nourishment, everything eventually shows up on the skin. And this is exactly what Ayurveda tells us. Even now, the modern science is also speaking the same thing in different language, of course.
Mm-hmm.
There is a difference, though, in the Ayurvedic approach. While, generally we talk about external applications, serums, creams, Ayurveda begins with a completely different focus. Ayurveda considers that everything that the skin shows, whether it is a blemish, a rash, signs of dryness or dullness, it's a message from your mind-body system. And most importantly, Ayurveda talks about the skin on the inside, the gut surface that we talk about, that is responsible for absorbing nutrition, and it also pulls off all the toxins from our body, right? So when the gut is compromised, that compromises this the skin health. And there is a unique concept in Ayurveda where it talks about how tissues get nourished, which starts from the gut. So when this digestion gets compromised, that travel through the tissues, that downstream travel is what gets compromised. By the time it reaches the skin, It shows up as dullness, breakouts, inflammation, and premature aging. The foundational teaching comes back to what you put inside your system, what we call ahara, our inputs, what you eat, what you perceive, how you perceive the world. First tissue that is described, which Ayurveda calls Rasa Dhatu, which we can correlate to plasma, the nutritive part of lymphatic system. It is the most important when it comes to skin health. And every subsequent tissue depends on the health of Rasa Dhatu, including our skin. So the end product of a good digestion is what we see on the skin. So you can practice, you can understand this because we say in Ayurveda, Rasa Dhatu, I'm sure Colette, your listeners might know this, that Rasa Dhatu formation, how this first tissue is formed, it, it is formed in a short time, in one day, we say. So when it, when we eat something, say we eat a late heavy meal which is processed versus we eat something light and easy to digest and warm, the impact is clearly visible the next day. So maybe we can start there, an exercise to understand how food impacts our skin, which is by Ayurvedic principles. It says we can understand the next day. So every morning, start by observing your skin and try to make a connection to what you had the previous day.
Yeah, that's great to daily check on the status of your skin because, as you said, the Rasa Dhatu, which is the first tissue formed from our food, and that Ayurvedic nutrition of the Dhatus is just amazing wisdom from Ayurveda. And I have a whole separate episode where I delved into that process, and I'll link it in the show notes for anybody listening who's not familiar with that. It really is important to understand that nutrition of the 7 tissues. But Rasa Dhatu being the first one formed, as you said, that can be within 24 hours of what we ate. So we really see a reflection on our skin from what we had, not only what we've eaten the previous day, but what we exposed our senses to, our interactions and so on, our stress levels, right?
Exactly. Yes.
And you mentioned there, of course, we're talking about Agni here, the digestive fire. So let's talk about how does impaired Agni, when our digestive fire is not working correctly and it starts to accumulate ama or toxins, how does that begin to show up on the skin?
Great question. So Agni, as you said, is your digestive fire, that intelligence that transforms food into nourishment and waste into something that our body can eliminate. Now, when the Agni is strong, everything works well. Our tissues are formed, we feel energetic, our skin glows. But when the Agni gets impaired, that is when the problem happens. So the food, from getting transformed to tissues or getting transformed to energy or being, getting stored for future use, this process is what gets impaired. And it leads to something that is incompletely formed, which we call as ama in Ayurveda. Ama literally means something uncooked or unripe. Its qualities are said to be heavy, cold, cloudy, sticky. So you can imagine, right? Something having heavy, sticky qualities will definitely go and accumulate in our channels, clog our, flow of nutrients, um, and even block our own body's intelligence. So, because skin is also a primary elimination organ, it becomes the dumping ground for all these problems when, especially when the internal channels are clogged and overwhelmed. It shows on the skin and in very unique ways. So sometimes we notice that, when we look through our photo albums, we look at our skin and we say, oh, there was this period when it was glowing. And now there was another period when it was, having that dullness. So that is exactly, we are all inherently wired to understand how natural healthy skin looks. When that natural shine and glow is lost, even the tone of the skin changes when there is ama accumulation. Especially in the morning, it becomes really evident. Sometimes our skin looks puffy and, kind of congested. Some people experience signs of inflammation, redness, hyperpigmentation. There could be blackheads or acne, and even on our whole body. So this is not just about our face, right? On our body, the the body odor changes. So it can become acrid or different from our natural body odor.
So you may have
So
more BO, body odor. Yeah.
that's right. And there is another indicator, which I'm sure most people by now they are familiar with it, that white coating on the tongue that we talk about,
Mm-hmm.
right? It is not the ultimate. I wouldn't say you should just get fixated on that tongue coating, but that is a useful indicator. If you see that there is a persistent thick white coating on your tongue, then which is whatever you do, whatever you eat, it is consistently there, then that is an indication of a significant ama overload in the system. We all are prone to getting ama load, right? We are all exposed to this lifestyle. We are making it common, we are making it normal to eat at erratic times, sleep at erratic times, not paying attention to the seasonal changes. And even when we try to help our skin, when we try to do these excessive skincare routines, I don't know how many steps are there. I lost count now.
Yeah.
So there is this over cleansing, right? Which
Yes.
literally strips the skin from its natural oils and triggers inflammation. So
Mm-hmm.
those are signs of ama, and the solution is not external. It is always internal. Bring back your digestive strength, clear ama, and we can talk about that. I'm sure you have useful resources, Colette, in your previous episodes on how to clear ama. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
right? Diet, lifestyle. There are some herbs, simple herbs, and even spices that can help with it. Newsflash is that there is no topical product that can clear ama-based skin problems. We
Right.
have to start internally. We
Mm-hmm.
have to address the root cause.
You talked about AMA there and looking not only at the status of your skin on a daily basis, noticing if there's puffiness, if there's inflammation, if there's acne, breakouts, and so on, or bumps onto the skin, but also on your tongue. And as well, just being aware of these, not to get hyper fixated, right, on things, but also just to have the awareness like, oh, I'm noticing more puffiness on the skin. Let me check out my tongue. Has it been consistently a thicker layer of ama over the last week? Building up that awareness and going through your own checklist when you're starting to notice things are off, because this is when we want to catch those early stages of imbalance, right? So that we can make simple changes, as you discussed in diet and lifestyle, before it manifests into a bigger issue. We also talked there, you mentioned earlier about the role of stress and, emotions and the nervous system and how, it's not just about the food we eat, but what our life and lifestyle is like and how all this can have an impact both on our digestion and on our skin. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about that now is what role do stress, emotions, and the nervous system play in both digestion and skin health?
Oh, I love this question. It's so central to Ayurveda's core principles. And again, now we hear about it often. There are modern, there is a branch called psychodermatology, which is only recently catching up to these concepts. And we hear terms like neuroimmune cutaneous system. We know that stress increases cortisol, causes inflammation, disrupts our, skin's protective barrier. Sometimes it causes excess of oil production in some cases, leading to, there can be problems like early collagen breakdown, premature wrinkles. All of this information is explained in Ayurveda using a different vocabulary. And they're not just explaining it, they're also giving us a better framework to understand what is the mechanism behind it and what can we do to prevent any imbalances, especially, now that we're talking about skin. Ayurveda calls skin, especially this is mentioned in Charaka Samhita, Cheta Samvahi. It's a Sanskrit term, which means Cheta means mind or consciousness, and Samvahi means the carrier. So, yeah, it's a beautiful term.
It
And
is.
it means that primary, skin is the primary instrument through which our mind or our consciousness makes contact with the external world.
Wow, that's
And
wonderful.
this,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, and this skin, that that connection to that external world, that structure, that organ we call the largest organ, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is closely connected to our Vata dosha. And it goes a step further. In Ayurveda, we talk about each of these subdivisions of Vata dosha. We talk about Pranavata, which is, our breath, nervous system activities, all the intake of our experiences is connected to Pranavata. And when we experience stress, fear, or any emotional upheaval or, trauma, Pranavata is the first to be disturbed. And Pranavata is also closely connected to our digestion. Pranavata is what I call our receiving mind. It's connected to our receiving mind. Then there is the Udanavata, which has a function of, one of its primary function is glow of our body, and that upward moving force, right, that brings nourishment to the surface. And it is connected to our processing mind. And then there is the Vyanavata, which is connected to circulation. It also carries, nutrients, not just nutrients, but our emotional experiences into the peripheral tissues, or the skin. And I call it the circulating mind. So there is the receiving mind, the processing mind, and the circulating mind. Then, that is with connection to Vata. There is the Prajaka Pitta and its connection with skin health.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about Kapha subdivisions like Sleshaka that governs all the junctions, all the interfaces. Skin is one of the largest interface. So Sleshaka has a role. Avalambaka Kapha has a role, which is related to the structure, the structural support. And Kapha is also connected to what we call Ojas, which we can talk about Ojas. And this is how, they describe this framework. So any problem or any disturbance in the function of any of these subdoshas can disrupt the skin health. And they have also given, tools to balance Vata, balance Pitta, balance Kapha. And that is how we can address skin issues from the root cause. See this connection. We see in some people stress kills appetite. In some others, it creates compulsive eating. In some people, it causes, anxiety and stress causes IBS kind of symptoms. For some others, chronic stress causes constipation. Grief can show up as pallor, right? Shame can show up as flushing of the skin. So, our skin literally wears our emotions. Gut brain connection is what Ayurveda describes through the connection of doshas, skin, and mind.
Yeah, I remember hearing before, and it really stuck with me, that emotions are reflected on the skin, which is similar to what you were saying earlier. This episode is sponsored by Kerala Ayurveda Academy. Discover the ancient secrets of beauty through the wisdom of Ayurveda with the Ayurvedic Beauty Certification from Kerala Ayurveda Academy. This 100-hour blended program combines authentic Ayurvedic teachings with modern beauty applications, including skin and hair wellness, herbal formulations, face yoga, marmotherapy, natural product creation, and hands-on clinical training. Learn from experienced Vaidyas and explore beauty as a reflection of inner balance, health, and radiance. Whether you're a wellness professional or simply passionate about holistic beauty, this program offers a powerful path towards healing, transformation, and conscious skincare. Sign up to learn more at keralaayurvedaacademy.us, and you'll find that link in the show notes. Thank you for breaking that down and going into the sub-doshas, because I did want to cover that as well. And we see that all three doshas and their sub-doshas are involved, the skin being our largest organ, as you said. And I'd love to go down the path now of looking at the imbalances which can manifest for each dosha type, some typical imbalances for Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And as you said, it's very individual for each person. And this is why Ayurveda says there's no one size fits all. We need to see, for each individual, what are the root of your particular skin issues, and then put a program in place to balance your unique constitution. So, when today we're talking about giving general advice, but it's always better to go get tailored advice to your body type, to your skin type, and so on. And the advice then is tailored to you, making it much more sustainable and realistic and much more beneficial and successful for you as well. So after saying all that, I'd love to talk about now, how do Vata, Pitta, and Kapha imbalances manifest differently in the skin?
Yes, that's an important question. That's what we say in Ayurveda, that we can customize. That's what makes Ayurveda extraordinarily practical. We look at the qualities and try to understand the doshas. So Vata, for example, we say its qualities are dry, rough, light. There is that cold quality, subtle qualities, right? So all these qualities will reflect on the Vata skin. Thin, dry, delicate skin, there will be a tendency to become dry, or that flakiness. If there is an imbalance, of course, there will be extreme dryness, extreme flakiness. Fine lines can appear early. There can be cracking, especially evident on the heels and your lips. There can even be diseases like eczema, or extreme sensitivity to temperature, like cold temperature. And all of these, you might also have seen people, when we talk about skin, nail also comes there, right? So people who bite on their nails, or pick on their skin when they are anxious, that is all connected to that Vata. When we try to approach this kind of a skin problem, it's mainly that deep hydration and nourishment that we need to focus on. Whereas Pitta skin has a different set of problems. Pitta's qualities are different, right? Pitta skin can be warm to touch, sometimes even little oily and even flushed. So the most sensitive, I would say, sensitive skin type, they react to heat very easily. Sun exposure, sunburn, all those are common. And even having a spicy food can immediately show up on their face. Stress can also show up, and they are more prone to conditions like acne, rosacea, and hyperpigmentation. For them, the focus is cooling food, cooling herbs, cooling lifestyle, avoiding exposure to things that will heat up their system. Once we take care of that, Pitta is the most beautiful skin, even though it is very sensitive. Then Kapha has another set of qualities, right? It is heavy, cold, moist, sticky. So all those qualities are what shows up on the Kapha skin. The Kapha skin out of all the skin types, it's the most resilient skin. It is thick, it is, smooth, cool to touch, and naturally it is very well moisturized. They can develop tendency towards, that those cystic kind of acne, blackheads, that puffiness of skin, or, that congested appearance, and even that large appearance, large pores. And even though we say they age most gracefully out of all the three doshas,
Mhm.
their skin can easily become stagnant and dull if proper care is not taken. So the focus in kapha skincare should be on purification, exfoliation. Even I have heard that kapha skin, many people say use scrubs, dry scrubs, but that's not true. Even kapha skin needs hydration, right? But we use lighter oils. When it is stagnant, we clear the channels and we use lighter oils for the kapha skin. People think, oh, I am Vata Prakriti, so my skin is supposed to be dry. And sometimes we see there is that disconnect, right? And, Kapha person does not have a Kapha skin always. The skin qualities can change over a period of time. It can, oily skin can become dry, which basically reflects a vata imbalance that has developed over time. So if the person is stressed or having irregular lifestyle, or always traveling, then definitely vata qualities can show up on the skin. You being one prakriti doesn't mean you have that kind of skin, and because
Mhm.
of that, it needs to be understood. To make it more interesting, we can also see that many people have different qualities in different areas of skin. So most people have a combination skin. So, start paying attention to how your skin feels, how it responds to food, or, even washing your skin. After washing your skin, how does it feel? Does it feel tight? Or does it, when you go outside and come back, does it look red and hot? Those are the ways we can understand.
Great information. And as we go through life, we see our skin change, right? You have your teenage
Mhm.
years where it's more pitta, especially in the middle phase of life. And then as we go through perimenopause and menopause, then we're naturally moving more towards the vata stage of life. And we see more of that dryness, no matter what skin type you had during your pitta phase, right?
That's exactly correct. Yes. And that's why Ayurveda tells that skincare should always be customized. A
Yeah.
heavy oily cream for Vata would work really well, but the same thing will clog the pores and, trigger breakouts in a Kapha skin.
Yeah. So again, it's really about having awareness. We have to take into context our stage of life, the stress, the food, the lifestyle, and so on. And so I think, Vaidya Kamya, let's simplify it a little bit and bring in some daily Ayurvedic practices that can really help support healthy skin. And we already talked about Ama. Let's talk about simple ways that we can support our digestion and clear Ama. And these are ways that all of us can support our skin, right?
That's right. And let me start answering this question by going back to that concept of our digestion and what is the end goal of digestion. We talk about proper digestion, or let me start with the inputs. The proper inputs, the right kind of inputs,
Mm-hmm.
nutritious diet, and good digestion, digestive strength, and formation of these tissues, with the end goal of this process, this tissue formation and healthy digestion, is what we call Ojas. Ojas, right? It is one of the most interesting concept in Ayurveda. We know that it is like a how do we describe it? The essential oils that we get from um, several pounds of rose petals is few drops. Our um, dhatu formation leads to the byproduct called ojas, which is like very that ultimate expression, ultimate refined expression of these tissues.
Mm.
And when you have good quality ojas, we say that it shows on your system. You have radiant skin, bright eyes, luminous, that aura is there. Even a calm mind. We talk about Ojas and its connection to mind. That is what, sometimes we notice. People enter the room and we immediately notice. That's not their makeup, it is the Ojas. And this Ojas can get impacted by our lifestyle, our food. And that is the reason why Ayurveda talks about what we call dinacharya, what you do in a day. What are the practices that can help rebuild our Ojas, right? And when we say, like coming back to what you said, Colette, it can easily overwhelm anybody, any health seeker.
Mhm.
So how can we make it simple, right? The highest impact comes from not doing all these practices together, but choosing the ones that are most important, prioritizing which is the one that I need at this stage of my life, and being consistent. Consistency is the key. So, starting your day a certain way. We have this, we talked about how we can understand, assess our doshas by just observing our skin in the morning, or, making that connection with the food that we ate the previous day. So, starting your day with that, or, rather, I would say, starting your day with gratitude that can also reflect on your skin. If there are practices like tongue scraping, which is extremely beneficial if you do it in the morning after brushing your teeth, then having starting your day with a glass of warm water. Again, you can customize it, you can add herbs or spices to it. Once you talk to an Ayurveda expert, they might be able to guide you on how to customize this first morning water, which is so important for our skin health. The next one I would suggest as an important daily practice, Colette, would be Abhyanga. And
Mm.
I have seen the benefit of Abhyanga on my skin. So this is something I always suggest, even if you are a very busy person, if you can find at least 5 minutes before you shower, if you can apply warm oil, and you might ask what oil. In general, we can say warm sesame oil works for most people in small quantities. It is slightly warming, so if you already have a lot of heat in the system, then you might have to choose other oils. But starting your day with that practice of applying oil, uh, in kapha kind of skin, we have to remember um, to incorporate some practice to actually unclog or stimulate that
Mhm.
circulation, right? So
Yeah.
in traditional practices, we have these powders which we call upton powders. Those are great for stimulating and invigorating the skin. Even vatas will benefit with these powder application. You just have to mix it in the right medium.
Is this with
So, okay.
chickpea powder?
Yes, Colette.
Mhm.
So you can use chickpea, you can use mung bean flour, even oats flour, whatever. In fact, a blend would be really good. You can choose different ingredients and create your own unique blend. And that would be really good to do
Mm.
before shower. I'm sure not everybody has the time to do it every day. So at least, once in a week or twice in a week would be great. We say we are a reflection of nature, right? So looking outside and flowing with the flow of nature, that is waking up before sunrise, eating your biggest meal before during lunchtime, sleeping um, before say 9:30, 10. Those kind of general guidelines that we always talk about, in simple terms we can say following the rhythm of nature. That is another important tool in these daily practices. We can of course add make it more customized. We can add digestive tea, herbal teas to this. But all of that requires more expert guidance. I would also like to add, Colette, the practice of nasya, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nasya is so connected to our skin. Nasya is often considered as something that is for the respiratory system, for the nose, but it is an important beauty treatment. We say nasya is a gateway to the head, right? Can nourish our skin. It can improve that rich vascular network in our face. And it's not just the face, the entire system. It can calm our nervous system. So it's a wonderful practice for enhancing our skin quality. And I think this is a good list, right, Colette?
Really good list. And just to explain to people a little further, for those who are new to nausea, it's nasal oil drops. So great list there. Thank you so much. And I think something I really want to cover too is the amount of hydration. We can't emphasize this enough. And I'm talking about fluids sans coffee, right? Because we know caffeine is dehydrating. So like waters and herbal teas and so on, how much you're taking in a day and the different requirements for different dosha types as well. So Vata having the tendency of a drier body type in general would need more hydration.
Yes, hydration and how much water should I drink? That's a huge question that most people ask. And it's very unique to your own
Mm-hmm.
requirement, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
are a physically active person, you are a runner, you obviously need more water, right? And like you rightly pointed out, people think that, oh, I'm drinking my coffee, I'm drinking those juices, cold juices,
Mm.
without realizing what it does at the dosha level or how it impacts our ability to absorb nourishment and hydration, right? So, one thing that we need to realize is that water also requires our our Agni's support for proper assimilation. If our Agni is not maintained in a healthy way, how much ever water we drink, we might drink, liters and liters of water, but we will still feel dry and parched because our system cannot assimilate that hydration. So at the end of the day, it also comes back to our digestive strength, our physical activity, age, underlying dosha imbalance, any underlying diseases, and stage of that disease. That even hydration, something as simple as that, also depends on multiple things. But in general, we can say, yeah, 1.5 to 2 liters. In general, you can aim for that, and starting your day with a glass, big glass of warm water is actually one way of, it is covered, right?
Yes, exactly. That's the best way to start the day, to hydrate after your night's sleep. And it helps to promote a bowel movement as well in the morning. So definitely be aware of your hydration, particularly if you have a very active lifestyle, if you're in a hot climate. Be aware of how much you're drinking per day. And as you said, your rhythm as well. Having a rhythm in your day, and consistency is so important. So if you could have consistent wake times and sleep times, consistent meal times, I'm talking like within an hour window, because your body loves rhythm and your body loves to be on this clock. And then all the systems in our body can be in a rhythm as a result, right? Vaidya Kamya?
Yes, beautiful. Yes, that's what we all want to focus on, the rhythm.
Yeah, exactly. So really great information here. And anything else you wanted to add before we finish up?
Yes, we can all get overwhelmed with this skincare trends that are going on. Especially, I want to speak to those young minds that can easily get influenced by what is happening in the world, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And there is this, like everybody is an expert, skincare expert. That is the unfortunate situation these days. And
Yeah.
there are conflicting beauty advices. So, one thing, like going back to what we have been talking about, listening to your body, that's a skill we are losing. It's a paradox, right? The body knows and body tries to give signs and symptoms, but we are not able to listen to it. We are desperately seeking the perfect skin solution outside, right? And that vata overdrive it creates when there is that conflicting information, and that anxiety, that inability to commit to a certain routine. All of that creates more vata. In a way, it is worsening the problem we are trying to solve. And Ayurveda years ago told about this. It called that condition prajna paratha. Prajna paratha means the loss of this wisdom.
Yeah.
We have this unique ability to have that intuition, but we are losing the ability to listen to that, and that is described as the major cause of all diseases, right? So Ayurveda's answer to skin care problems lies in its simplicity. It says to begin with the gut, not with the skin. Start by asking yourself, how is my diet? Am I creating stagnation because of certain food or lifestyle? Because no amount of external products can compensate for this internal compromise that happens. No product can give the glow of healthy Ojas. And unfortunately, Ojas is not available in a bottle. So let's start by listening to our body, looking at our digestion, looking at even how our elimination is. Are you feeling bloating or gasiness, acidity? How is my sleep quality? All of these are important questions. And the final message, Colette, would be in what Ayurveda says about beauty as being a byproduct of health and not a goal in itself.
Right.
When
Exactly.
you eat for your dosha, when you sleep well, manage stress, keep your digestion strong, nourish your tissues. The skin will glow on its own. It does not have to be overloaded with many products. And I will end with this concept called swasthya or swastha, which is a Sanskrit word. It says, the concept. It is talking about the concept of health. What is health? Definition of health in Ayurveda. And the essence is that being established in the self is health. And there
Yep.
is no greater beauty than a person who is truly at home in their own body.
Yep. Absolutely. Establishing the self, grounded in their truth and really understanding themselves. It's powerful.
Yes. In simple terms, for anybody new to this concept, is that you understand yourself and you're established in your true nature.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Vaidya Kamya, we've covered a lot. Where can we find out more? Is there any programs available in Kerala Ayurveda Academy?
Yes, we do have, all that we discussed. If we want to get to the root of the problem, right? Ultimately, that is the question. Where can we get the right information? And we have a wonderful website, keralaayurveda.us. I'm sure you'll put it in the show notes,
Yes, I
Colette.
will. Yes.
Okay, so anybody interested can look up this website. We have all the information regarding the certification programs, workshops, and there are many useful resources as well. So please do check out our website. We are also developing a course where we'll be discussing more about beauty related Ayurvedic concepts, so please stay tuned for that.
Great. Okay. So check out the website. I'll put the link in the show notes. Vaidya Kamya, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation and very informative. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much, Colette. It's always a pleasure to be here.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Vaidya Kamya, and please check out the show notes for Kerala Ayurveda Academy's 100-hour Ayurvedic beauty certification. Now, if you would like support on your journey with Ayurveda, then check out my online offerings on my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com. And if you have any questions before booking, then take advantage of my free 15-minute services inquiry call. We can hop on Zoom and I can answer all of your questions. And don't forget to follow or subscribe to the podcast, and the new episodes will automatically download for you. And if you would like to leave a rating and review, I would really appreciate that. Please come join me on social media. On Instagram, it's Elements of Ayurveda Podcast, and on Facebook, it's Elements Healing and Wellbeing. And until next time, take good care of yourself, be well, and bye for now. Slán go fóill.